Welcome to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnitt.
I'm Phil Proctor.
Hey, Phil.
We have a wonderful guest with us today, and who knows what's going to happen on this show.
Yeah.
That's what I love about doing it. I don't have to do any prep, no makeup. I don't have to wait in the trailer. You know, they don't have to adjust the lighting or anything. We just bring in a wonderful guest like Gerry Fialka, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, is it a J or a G?
It's a G. My mom named me after Gerald, the patron saint of mothers.
Oh.
And so she wanted to keep the G.
The Mothers of Invention, right?
Well, eventually I worked for Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention.
There you go.
But, well, for Frank Zappa. But I loved your thing about makeup because Frank said it so well. He says, I don't have any brown lipstick in my makeup kit. That's what KPFK is all about. I mean, Lou Hill started this magnificent living organism so many years ago.
Yeah.
And I thank all the KPFK people over the many years.
Millennia.
They really followed Bucky Fuller's all crew, no passengers.
Oh, that's perfect.
And you know, David Porter, I co-produced with him years ago on this station, and we had people like Bill Mitchell and Robert Dobbs, and this is this sub-genius kind of philosophy where there's something underneath, like unintended consequences. They're buried, unrecognized things. So pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's the Wizard of Us. And what we do in KPFK and in Venice, California, is we are Toto memes. We're the dog in Wizard of Oz. We're pulling the curtain back and revealing. We're the atomic dogs.
Right.
We're revealing what's really happening.
Yeah, what's going on
or maybe
behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So it's like salute to Pacifica Archives because they're preserving. I mean, you guys, this is live radio, an amazing phenomenon. Wyndham Lewis said it best. He says, artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future.
Of the future.
Of the future. So be here now, Ram Dass. What an amazing thing for you to invite me on an event that happens live.
Yeah.
But why do we want to preserve anything? If we're having such a good time now,
Yeah.
why do we really have to preserve anything?
Hey, the future is now.
That's it. And everything you know is wrong. So if everything you know is wrong, then why not move forward? You know,
Sure.
and
Get on the moving yellow line, as the Firesign Theatre said. And I think we're all bozos on this bus.
my heroes. I mean, like I told you, I grew up hearing my friends recite your albums to me as a live event, not as a documented on vinyl. And you said that double layer. You said earlier you love that because it really made it more of what's, I think Marshall McLuhan learned from James Joyce is, how do we uncover these hidden psychic effects?
Right.
So Fireside has
Yep.
acknowledged Joyce and Ulysses as an influence,
That's
but
right.
indeed what Marshall learned from Finnegan's Wake is that everything we invent extends some humanness. Like knife and fork extends our teeth. The shutter in a camera extends our eyelid. Even non-tangible, like philosophy or religion, might extend consciousness. So right off the bat, I have to flip this around. And what does live radio extend for you, Phil? What humanness?
Oh, it's people in my ears.
That's it. The inner dialogue is what T.S. Eliot said, that poetry is outing your inner dialogue.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go to Ted. What does live...
Ted.
What does live radio extend for you? What humanness? Human sensorium.
It's the spark of spontaneity.
That's it. I'm trying, and it leads right to the topic you wanted me to delve into is...
Well,
Venice, I was going to take it into Venice, California, but yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, now we can introduce you.
We should.
Oh, no, don't
because I don't know if we're going to be able.
Or
you know,
maybe not.
Just call me
it's a mystery.
Antiquarian ne'er-do-well.
Gerry
That's the best
Fialka,
way.
the ambassador of Venice Beach, the most appropriate, a representative of the eclectic place that is known as Venice
the Eclectic
Beach.
Collective.
And so today we're going to talk about, obviously, Gerry's really remarkable 43-year existence in Venice Beach. But in the process of doing that, also talk about Venice Beach, which is a phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's a really a remarkable and because it's so present, it's often very uncomfortable. You know, I live adjacent to. I live literally about 100 feet from the Venice Beach border, and I've always kind of been a little more comfortable being on the other side of the border. It was sort of like when I lived in Manhattan, and I was a block or two off of the Village, living in Chelsea. At least I had a quiet tree-lined street to go home and sleep. And Venice is this place where you sort of poke into. And it has been always a fascinating place based on its roots, really.
Well, Ted,
who created it?
Ted, get into get knee deep in the swamp muck of Venice,
which
is spontaneity. I'm trying to get more control of my spontaneity. The idea of me going into Abbot Kinney would go a little too long, but basically he's an entrepreneur who said, I wanted to recreate Venice, Italy. And he made it an amusement park town. Big deal. It flourished, but then it became a drunken sailor town.
Well, what happened was Prohibition.
Yeah.
And what, Kinney, just, Abbot Kinney, everybody's been on Abbot Kinney Boulevard, which is one of the hottest retail strips in all of the country, I think.
I've gotten
at this
drunk
point.
on Abbot Kinney.
But this is now going back to the early 20th century. Abbot Kinney was a developer, really, and he had a really interesting.
Hey, Abbot!
He was he came from like the forestry department. He created the first
tree
land management cultivated forest. Like this, it was a kind of remarkable guy, and his wife wanted to live in Santa Monica, and then he acquired with some partners this land south of Ocean Park, and it was all called, which is neighborhood now between the Santa Monica Pier and the 1905. Everything south of the most and Ocean Park. When you see pictures, it's hard to imagine Ocean Park being that part of Santa Monica being like Atlantic City. It was just it was massive. And what happened was because there was no air conditioning, and the Red Line would bring out hundreds of thousands of people out for relief in the summer, and there were hundreds of thousands of people. And Abbot Kinney's kind of vision was a Chautauqua. It was to create an
art haven.
Well, to recognize all the multifaceted talents and bring community together through performance and all of that. And then and I'll just make this really quick so people understand the basis of what Venice became. Sure. And then in 1920 he died suddenly, and L.A. it all went.
That's when it became a drunken
It went to
site.
hell.
Yeah.
And all these canals he built to recreate Venice as an amusement park, Venice of America, became contaminated.
And bikers and hippies.
Well, before that even happened, they discovered oil.
There you go.
And there were hundreds of oil wells, which then fouled all
oil and water, not a good mix.
And then it fouled all the canals, and then it kind of fell apart with Prohibition. And the oil wells weren't fully capped until the 60s, or actually the 90s, the early 90s. It was the last one. And so what happened was when Kinney died, everything fell apart. L.A. voted to annex Venice. Fell into disarray.
Venice the Menace.
It really fell apart, and then it attracted a lot of Holocaust survivors and Eastern European immigrants.
Really?
And that's where it became its sort of intellectual hub. Yeah. But then it just kind of fell apart. And by the 50s, it was really pretty crummy. But that's what brought in the Bohemians and the Beat generation, like Soho in New York in the 70s. They took it over. Yeah. And that was really the basis of this eclectic community that to this day remains iconoclastic and
so well summarized.
Okay, but Gerry, you come from Ann Arbor, Michigan originally.
I come from Flint, Michigan via Ann Arbor.
Yeah, Ann Arbor, where the buildings are rusty. Yeah. Because it had so much iron ore in there. And what brought you out here, and how did you find yourself?
Well, simple. I discovered experimental film studying art in University of Michigan, and started seeing the parallel between the Surrealist and my Frank Zappa album covers and go, there's no difference here. And then I said, well, I want to move out to L.A. and help Frank Zappa distribute his films or work for him. And that's what I did. And it's been a beautiful ride because I've rented a 2-door garage in Venice, California for 43 years. And thank God my landlord hasn't thrown me out.
Good.
And it's just been an amazing experience of what Ted laid out in this history is that once you get to that 50s and these elders are hanging out in Venice because of the good weather, and that's for their health, the Beats come in because of the low rents, which you just brought up, and they start inhabiting 2 major coffee houses, the Venice West Cafe and the Gas House, and that allows the elders to walk the boardwalk and feel safe because of the drunken sailors. And so this flourishes because from the Beats, the authentic literature movement with Kerouac and Ginsberg, we so wisely in America spawned the beatniks, which is, most people know the Beats through Dobie Gillis. Work! And that was beautiful, but it's not, the beatniks and Beats are different. And I got there through the beatniks, but that doesn't mean you can't go back. So it's constantly, the sacred ground of Venice nourished the Venice West to become Sponto Gallery. So for a couple decades, this guy just started doing what the Beats did. And I was able to weasel my way in there and start showing experimental films and putting on events like showing Phil's film. And,
was it TV or not TV? What did you show?
Was it TV or not TV? I think it was both TV.
Yeah, it was both.
Both and neither. I don't know what we showed, but no, I think it was J-Men Forever.
Oh, J-Men Forever.
Yeah, Kevin Thomas gave
favorite.
it a great review in the LA Times. Like, dude, this film is like 20 years old, and he still wrote it up. Well, thank you. We had a sold-out house. And all kudos to this gentleman.
Oh, thank you. He's pointing at me.
We didn't charge people. We had fun, but we didn't charge people. And at the end of the night, it says, "Oh, there's $100 in the donation bucket." And he goes, "You guys keep it." Nobody ever did that.
No, Phil is
that touched my heart.
Phil is one
deeply.
of the most generous people you'll ever meet.
But it is this thing of how there's so many different parts that come up. So once I start reading Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people, it enables me to get a community together.
Now wait, that's been going on for a long time.
It is.
That's a big deal.
Now that was started in this is our 28th year.
Yeah, so you've been a fixture really of Venice Beach.
I've been fixing. Yeah. Well, that was the thing I wanted to tell you. In Venice, you can have a homeless wino junkie next to a millionaire movie director and not tell the difference. So you Santa Monicans, you go, well, you can tell the difference in Santa Monica, Marina Del Rey. In Venice, you can't tell the difference. And that is this inclusive, this fluidity, this where we're all humans. And like we brought up the word homeless previous, is like there's no homeless people. The earth is everyone's home. There's houseless people. But because we want branding and the homeless want their movement to be acknowledged, they say, call us homeless. But yeah, the McLuhan Finnegan's Wake Reading Club was 28 years old. But what we did was, this is to understand the relationship. The 2 key words to all my things is understanding relationships. Is a book is something that you use with your eyes and you look at printed word.
Right.
And what Joyce said is, no, you have to look at the printed word and speak it out loud with a group of people who are all looking at the printed word at the same time. And it becomes a clarion call. It becomes a hootenanny. So you're shifting the medium. Much like Phil did with his group, shifted the medium of live radio drama to subvert the norm.
Absolutely.
And this is someone who hung out. So before it was Sponto Gallery, it was the Venice West Cafe, the people who hung out there were the monumental pioneers of all this. And the key one was Lord Buckley. He subverted comedy from within. why is he known as the biggest influence on Lenny Bruce besides strip clubs? Is because he turned joke telling into storytelling. That's why
he also embodied a character in order to portray it.
He did it very good. And that's why Robin Williams, George Carlin, and even Bob Dylan says, I owe all my success to Lord Buckley. We're celebrating.
So Venice...
I bought a car from his son once, by the way.
Yes, Lord
But that's
Buckley's,
another story.
Lord Buckley's kids are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really cool. Yeah.
So Lord Buckley, is he a product of Venice?
He's not a product. He came and hung out at the Venice West Cafe. So, of course, I mean, you can call him a product. There's so many people who hung out at the Venice West Cafe. So, like this Sunday, that's what we're celebrating, how the influence of the Beat Generation literature movement interwove itself with jazz, like Babs Gonzalez.
And Lord Buckley.
And Lord Buckley and Slim Gaillard. Could we talk about Slim Gaillard for a second? Quiz this gentleman who knows everything, Phil. I'm turning to Phil.
What I can make up anything.
Yeah, well, I know. What U.S. president and his wife memorized every Slim Gaillard lyric?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Waylon Jennings?
That is almost right. Ronald Reagan. Ooh, those aren't the kind of words you want to hear around here. I'm not pro this. I
didn't think he could memorize anything. I thought he was just reading.
He is called. Good point. He's what's called phatic communication. Phatic communication is when you go along. It's water cooler talk. And that's what it is. But Slim Gaillard was called by a character in On the Road by Jack Kerouac as God. You know who else hung out at the Venice West Cafe was a gentleman by the name of Wallace Berman. Now, not big, well-known, but in the art world, he did an amazing magazine of collage and poetry out of Venice, out of the Venice West Cafe. And where did his picture end up? On the cover of Sgt. Pepper's. He is one of those characters. And he said this line, art is love is God. But I've got to revert back to one of my influences as an experimental filmmaker, Louis Buñuel. He says, thank God I'm an atheist.
Now, you said you have an event coming up this Sunday?
Yeah, this Sunday at the Venice West, which is a club that took Venice West Cafe and just threw it on their walls, or on their marquee. But we were like, hey, you can't just do that. And they go, well, we want to be part of the community. So they layered their walls with the history of Venice, music, art, and poetry. And it is quite amazing. You go into dark rock clubs, you can't see the walls. You can go on YouTube and watch the Venice West tour by me, and for 20 minutes it shows you all this stuff. But what rock club on earth you walk in and the first thing you see is Ornette Coleman and Frank Zappa on the walls? They usually have two guys that I learned from him, Bruce Springboard and Elton Bob. These are two lines. See, I become the repeaters of these influences. So, this is what I'm a hypocrite. What you guys did so well is you absorb your influence, then you abandon them.
Yeah.
And you're an alchemist. But me, I absorb them and repeat them. Like Krasner, one of my heroes, he says, I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives.
Nice.
So you're the person to ask about, is this legend of Venice still alive? Is it still happening?
It's endless. It's never going to die. It's in the water. It's in the air. And it's like, believe me, if you're down and out and you don't have anywhere to go on the face of the earth, come to Venice.
Oh, that's what I tell people. If you want to see the tip of the spear of the great unraveling, come to L.A. But what I'm really thinking is Venice Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of what I've witnessed there, living adjacent to it for decades now.
Yeah. You know what's comparable to? There was a rock club in Venice, and it was called, it was the old Agora Ballroom, where Abbott Kinney had these amazing venues. Benny Goodman started when he was a teenager, Glenn Miller.
No kidding.
Yeah, they both started as teenagers in Venice, California. So this rock club has, Marty Lieboff in the Venice Beachhead, our local paper, wrote up every rock band that played there. And it's amazing. My friend was just interested in collecting pop bottles and getting the money. He didn't realize above him was Hendrix and Joplin and the Mothers of Invention with Frank Zappa. And Marty watched Zappa and the Mothers, who didn't really known as playing New Orleans rock and roll, do a second line out of the club onto the boardwalk. Zappa, where in people who don't know what second line is, there's the parade in New Orleans where people march in honor of the funeral. This all connected back to Finnegan's Wake and James Joyce in Forgetting to Die. So here you got these people parading. Then you have the real loose, crazy, free-spirited people in the back doing the really funky, the Meters and Dr. John and Lee Dorsey.
They were all in Venice?
No, the spirit of the second line is what Venice, continues to do. Is we're in the spirit of the second line. We're the people in the back. We're like the Totos, the Toto memes. I'm revealing what's really happening.
Maybe it's the other side of the record.
That's it.
Which again is people don't understand. There's a lot of people now who don't even know what that means.
Of course, the Doors were,
The Doors were there too.
And listen, I told you this at lunch.
Yes.
At Yale, and he was the first guy to turn me on to pot. Yep. He was the first man.
But check this out. You'll love this too, Ted. I have a film festival that's 33 years old. And it is all films made with a toy video camera. So when you watch normal...
Pixel this.
Yeah. When you watch normal TV, like Phil's kind of shows. What's normal TV? When you watch normal TV, you're watching 200,000 dots. With Pixel Vision, you're watching 2,000 dots. So it's chiaroscuro. It's like what we call it is lo-fi hijinks. So it's getting over. When they showed Monterey Pop, one of the great rock films of all time, to executives to possibly get it in theaters, they said, it doesn't meet industry standards. Now, you can have the worst crappy video ever, and it makes it out. So Pixel's been fun, and again, it's the Venice community that's enhanced it, because basically there's a few people, Richard Linklater's put in Slacker, and Michael Armoritas put in Hollywood Films, but mostly it's so low dig and so lo-fi, it will never make it big. That's why I like it. We were actually called by the New York Times a small film festival. I goes, thanks for the compliment.
I can dig it.
I can dig it.
You do. So you're still doing this?
Oh yeah, and then this
How does somebody find it?
Oh, it's all on our website called laughtears.com.
Laughtears.com.
And it's simply a James Joyce. You don't have to read Finnegan's Wake. It's 628 pages. I know. You don't have time to do that. We're too busy deleting emails, defacing, and, defriending people on Facebook. So you just read one word, Laugh Tears. So he took the word laughter and added an A and an S, and he turned it into the human condition. You laugh and you cry. That's what life's about. You rise up and then you fall down.
When I was in high school, I did a senior. We had to do a senior talk with some teachers, and what I came up with was exactly that. When you laugh hard enough, you'll cry, and in tragedy, if you're crying hard enough, you end up laughing.
It's true. It's an amazing thing. And people don't know that when you're crying, you're getting toxins out of your body. This is where art and science meet. But it is this thing about the Pixel Vision, just to understand, is all these, the experimental film world isn't big. It's like poetry. But they use Pixel Vision, blah, blah, blah. But what do I turn to as my community? So I've had a homeless guy who's been a limo driver enter 15 years in a row telling little stories. It is like the beginning of video art. It's very in your face. You've
always been inclusive. I mean, you invited the movie I made. We played at
Hello,
right.
Mau Sex X.
Yeah. And it was a great screening. It was just
it's
wonderful,
so fun. Yeah. And we're all about the community getting involved. So I ended up having, like Sunny War, she's huge now. She was on Jimmy Kimmel and on Rolling Stone. And she's in the Pixel Fest over 10 years in a row, singing a song. And it's really...
So do you have a YouTube channel?
Oh, we got 15 YouTube channels. Sorry.
So people can watch this who are not local.
Oh, yeah. Well,
her tube and his tube and your tube.
So you go to YouTube and you search pixel this?
You can go to YouTube and search anything except my name. No, all you do is you go to Laugh Tears and there's links to everything. But you can type in Pixel This Film Festival. But the other thing is this blending of mediums and genres. So the Lit Show is something I've produced with my wife for the 16th
Susie
year.
Williams.
Yeah, Susie Williams. So the 16th year, and her partner Brad Kay take songs that were written by people who are known as book writers. So Dorothy Parker actually wrote 2 songs that Billie Holiday did. Wow. Tennessee Williams wrote a song that Marlon Brando sang in The Fugitive kind. So this is over 15 years. We've done a slew of 200 of these, and it's endlessly we're finding more.
Hey, the Tennessee Williams story. My wife was doing, Melinda Peterson, was doing a Blanche in Streetcar down in Key West, where Tom wrote it, where what's his name wrote it.
Yeah,
and he was famously known for being outrageous, appearing outrageous when he went to see his own plays. And he would, for instance, laugh at the scene at the end when they take Blanche away, because that was his sister, and she was driving him crazy. So it was a relief when he was taken away. Well, he was seeing one production of his play, Streetcar Named Desire, and at the end, he said to his friend, he said, that girl who was playing Blanche, she looked familiar. He says, well, yeah, you saw her, Tennessee, you saw her in a musical just a couple of, weeks ago. And he said, oh, well, why didn't she sing? Right?
Well,
sorry.
No, don't be sorry, because if you can't say it, sing it. And if you can't sing it, dance it.
One of my dear friends used to use singing as a way to let people kind of find their voice, and give them confidence.
Yeah.
What do you think? Why do you think Venice is uniquely suited to host and reflect this kind of culture?
Yeah, that's Robert Williams. He said, if it matches the couch, it's art. If it demands attention, it's culture. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what it is there's a fringe society. We all have a commonality. We're all trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
But there's a fringe that's like, well, do I have to do it the normal way or a different way? Mm-hmm. So back to him saying, outing your inner dialogue, there's voices in my head. Mm-hmm. I mean, I go to the poets like Ferlinghetti. He wrote a song, Dog. Ferlinghetti wrote a poem, Dog. Bob Giroux, the only white guy Miles would really deal with as a jazz vocalist, he wrote the music. And this song, Dog, is performed in both the Lit Show and the Venice Beach Show. And it is amazing to hear what poetry does in the setting of music, where you blend the two. Because this is what Joyce was doing with Finnegan's Wake. He was turning this book reading experience, which is solo, into this choral thing where you're joining the community together in a commonality. So it really doesn't matter, Ted, if we're in Venice or Santa Monica or Flint, Michigan. Mm-hmm. It's the people getting together. Of course, I believe it's sacred ground because it's near the ocean. We got great weather, and there's something about the air. People go, why do you move to L.A.? It's stinky air. Well, go down to Venice. Yeah. It seems to be clean air, and you can watch the green dot.
But there's certain traditions like the drumming circle.
That started in '72.
Every Sunday, there is you can hear drumming miles away, time depending on the wind currents. And there are, 50, 100, maybe 200 people all just know to go down there and just bang on a drum.
Yeah, but it is this ability to free yourself. It's about liberty, and it's about what enables one to be free. It is back to Tennessee Williams for a second because it goes back. This is like a great playwright. Tennessee Williams comes along and writes these great plays, and people can relate to them, and they touch these people. Then Susie and I find this song that he wrote in this obscure thing. It's like, wow, why don't we do this song? She ends up adding her own lyrics, because the song's so short with Marlon Brando in the back of this truck being like a Bob Dylan troubadour. She adds her own lyrics, so it enables her to flush out her experience. Like me, we ride our bike around Venice all the time, running into other people. So it's
you don't want to run into people. You can wave at them.
Well, you know who I used to run into that you knew well, I know, is one of the greats is Orson Bean. Oh, you could run into him in the street riding his
sweetest man,
but told some of the greatest jokes. Like, "Doctor, take my pants." I won't tell the whole joke. I don't know if it's appropriate for these.
Number 7.
Right, but this thing about alchemy, I just want to say, is like you take two known things, and then you blend them together and come up with a third unknown thing.
Yeah, McLuhan used to say, take one cliche and blend it with another cliche, and you have a new cliche.
Dude, you're quoting McLuhan and me. I love that. He wrote a book called From Cliche to Archetype. And that's you're really getting into the good ones. Hyperbole is the best thing ever.
Yeah, that's right.
but like, just to finish, and that's what Zappa did. That's what Preston Sturgis did, and that's what Firesign Theatre did. They took two known things, put them together, and came up with a third unknown thing. But the key was that's just okay alchemy. They're supreme alchemists because then they satirized their own third thing.
That's true.
That's the beauty, is when you can get a little deeper. That's our mission, I think, of Venice people, is we go a little deeper. Mm-hmm. We don't just settle for, hey, anybody can write a nice, sweet pop song or write a nice, moving poem. But it's like, my thing with art is, if it messes your stuff up and enables you to go, I could do that. It inspires you. That's what, our art is like. McLuhan and Andy Warhol both said art is anything you can get away with.
That's right.
My one friend said, that sounds like Trump.
I have a McLuhan story. Can I tell you?
Please.
Peter Bergman and I, when we were touring as Proctor and Bergman, alphabetical order, we were told that Marshall McLuhan wanted to meet with us. And so we were playing up in Toronto, and he was a professor there at the University of Toronto, and he invited us for tea in his rooms. So we go find his rooms, and he had a butler who was serving the tea and taking care of him, who was actually kind of like white gloves and the long-tailed coat. It was amazing. And we're in this nice little office of his. And after we have our tea, he says, would you like a smoke and a cigar? Because he said, I have Cuban cigars in Canada. You
sure.
can get Cuban.
Yeah.
So he goes to his safe. Really. And he opens the safe and he takes out a bunch of cigars, gives one to me and one to Pete, lights us up, and we're sitting there smoking our cigars and talking, and all of a sudden, bang! He had planted loads in the cigars. And the reason he wanted to talk to us was he wanted to add more humor to his lecture.
Important.
By the way, have you noticed you can say that word, the SHIT word, on news programs now?
Can you?
Have you noticed
No,
that?
basic cable.
Yeah, basic cable.
Well, they always have been able, because they're not
broadcast.
No,
they've always been.
No, they're not broadcast. They're not subject to FCC regulation.
Well, I know that, but they still have been very careful about not using.
That's Ernie Kovacs. TV's a rare medium. I want it rare.
One of my idols.
Oh, God. Thank God.
Ernie
And see,
Kovacs.
that's, again, how we absorb these people and then abandon them. I don't really want to abandon them. I want to repeat your name and Krasner's name and McLuhan's name and Zappa's name and Duchamp's name.
Well, they live
then
on
kids
through
go,
us.
oh, I was talking to this kid at the Ann Arbor Film Festival. He's 20, I'm 70, 50 years different. And all of a sudden he's going, I like what you said about McLuhan. I was like, you know about McLuhan? Uh-huh. And then he goes, I just read a Mom's Mabley line. And I goes, Mom's Mabley from a 20-year-old? Yeah, I was cutting my husband's toenails the other night, broke the damn lawnmower. But again, this is this double layering, okay? And it's like, how do we get deeper than the norm? It's not that the norm isn't bad. It's how we deal with what we don't like about things.
So Venice, reflecting the crazy times, the upside down times we're in right now.
Yeah.
It's still, Venice has changed with the times. You're saying this spirit is still alive, and yet Venice is such an interesting duality of super rich and super poor and NIMBYism. There wasn't a house evidently built in a new home, was not constructed in Venice between 2007 and 2022. Not one.
Wow.
And
that's why there's so many homeless people there.
Well, there were 2,000 homeless people. And,
as Harry Shearer said, the home of the homeless.
Well, that was Santa Monica.
Yeah.
That's Santa Monica.
But
big difference.
That's changed now, right?
But that changed in a big way.
Yeah.
Santa Monica was not friendly to the homeless as it was.
Yeah.
So they all went down to L.A. where the law protected them because of this arcane decision in Idaho with the Eighth Circuit and an Idaho decision that allowed people to legally sleep on the streets of Los Angeles.
No kidding.
And that's why they all moved down there. And then there, literally a couple of blocks from our place, we had hundreds of people. And Karen Bass became mayor.
Yes.
And to her credit, I have to say, things have been shuffled around to a degree, but all of these streets for 10 years were just basically, completely consumed by homelessness.
Yeah.
They're clear. I walked them for the first time the other day. It was almost eerie to walk down these streets, and they're gone. Now, if you drive around, you'll find pockets of homelessness, of course,
in Beverly Hills as well.
But this is the interesting thing, though, about Venice is like you said. I mean, all of this. When that right-wing guy was running for mayor about 3 years ago and he was almost stabbed by a homeless person, I was there for that. Yeah. That was in front of a $3 million condo complex. I mean, it's such an odd place, the duality of Venice Beach.
Yeah, it's also the homeless live on Skid Drive.
And yet in Venice Beach, they're going to, it's still alive. They're going to host skateboarding, 3x3 basketball during the Summer Olympics in 2028.
Wow.
So, it's still...
They'll put a Band-Aid on it and clear them out. Look, I could talk about
because it's such a huge tourist attraction, the city was losing revenue.
Right, but it's a deep subject, and I'll give you one divert if you want on that. Please. When COVID hit, I befriend a lot of the homeless, and a lot of the homeless people are musicians. Mm-hmm. They're feeding us with medicine, which is music. A lot of them don't even care if they get money. They're doing this favor to the world, sharing music. That's what music is. All art aspires to the condition of music. Painting, poetry, live radio wishes it can be as cool as music.
Comedy is rhythm.
That's it. And so this culture has lived on the boardwalk forever. People camping. It's a public camp space. Mm-hmm. So they should be allowed. But then there were rules. You stay on the boardwalk, and then every Friday you move all your stuff to the Speedway, and they spray it down, and then you bring it back. During COVID, they stopped spraying down every Friday. So what did yuppies do? Throw out all their crap, and the homeless brought it and made it shanty town. What do you expect? So they're not spraying it down. They're like, this is horrible. I goes, then don't come down here. Yeah. Because this is human beings living, and it's a big thing. I have a bias. I don't feel threatened by them. Well, I know people who've been killed and hurt, and I know people who've been killed and hurt by not homeless people. Right. So they are the blunt end of the stick. That's the problem.
The one particular case, I think one of the times I saw you, there was an art gallery in the old Cadillac Hotel building. Yeah. And I was walking, and I came up in New York City in the bad old days, and I go to New Orleans every year. So
you get it.
Edgy neighborhoods are something I'm aware of. I'm okay in them. My radar goes up. And my radar goes up in Venice Beach, in those two situations. And that particular afternoon, it was a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and I walked down to the exhibition, and there were a lot of people, but I felt very on edge. Mm-hmm. And I went home, and literally 2 hours after I walked that space. The manager of the hotel came out and shot and killed a homeless person. So the edge. The edge is always there. Now, they've cleaned up that homeless part. They're now flower boxes where they were. But there was I want to give a shout out to a movie that was made, a documentary by Laura Bronson called The House Band. It just played at the Santa Barbara Film Festival a couple of weeks ago. And I got a chance to see it because I was involved in it as a subject by relationship to a subject in the house band.
You were in the movie?
Yeah, but because I have a relationship with somebody who was homeless on that.
And all the band members were my friends.
Yes.
It's an amazing
now
street musicians who lived on the boardwalk practicing their art to help people make the world a better place.
People would walk by this group of homeless guys who were playing good music, and what you wouldn't know was that these were great players. Now, they had various addictions, and we're down
just
and out.
like the millionaire rock stars do have various addictions.
Okay,
That's certainly true.
Right. But we had,
and they're allowed to have that. They can go on MTV and say, "Don't do heroin. I did it for 30 years, and now you don't do it." Don't.
But anyway, so Laura made this film called The House Band, and I don't think she has a distribution deal as yet. I hope she does get one because it really is an excellent movie that portrays this culture of Venice without. She didn't want to do a nose-on homeless movie. She wanted to do a story that reflected the homeless culture, and she did it through this band called the House Band, which has been there. They were a fixture. I don't know where they are now.
Some of them still play. I know Steve out there.
But this is the oddity or the uniqueness of Venice.
This is embracing contradiction. Ted, is a great point you made. This is what Frank Zappa taught me. Embrace contradiction. One line addresses exactly what you said. I will love the police as they kick out of me on the street. What are you going to do about that? How are we going to deal with this? This is what KPFK is all about, is airing these ideas, sussing them out, trying to apply them with action or continuing the conversation. The revolution is two people talking. The other thing Frank said that is applicable in embracing contradiction. I'm not black, but there's a lot of times I wish I could say that I'm not white. Now, that's a bold thing to say for a white guy who was a black wannabe. And Frank would admit it. He wanted to satirize what he loved the best, black music. Then one third comment that he said that intensifies this whole thing. How do we embrace contradiction? You want to be nice to the homeless, but also you want to go, whoa, it's hard. Yeah, what am I going to do about this? Nothing is what I want. He said that as a mockery to Zen. So what do we want in the long run in our lives? And how do we process that? Through three things, basically: spoken word, printed word, and electronic word. And spoken word includes this thing called gesture. So how do we deal with communication? What Phil has specialized in his whole life is being an actor, writing. What you've specialized, how do we figure out the hidden psychic effects of communication?
And how do you tell that story?
That's it.
You tell the story. I want to mention that when you were talking about Venice being the home of the drunken sailors, my wife and I actually got lost in Venice, in Italy, one night, and came across a group of drunken sailors who had missed their boat. Their boat had left without them.
They're in trouble.
Yeah, we were all lost in Venice at the same time.
This is a journey.
It's a story.
It's a story and its journey. It all goes back to Campbell. Campbell got everything he knew from Finnegan's Wake. And this is about what does this story,
We're not talking about the soup empire. We're talking about...
That's what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, we did,
you can mix them up all you want. I love it. I call it Joseph Campbell soup. And it's this thing called the search for identity. Yeah. So how do we find? It doesn't matter who who wins or who loses. Who is the hero to us or the shero? And both Krishnamurti and McLuhan said that violence is human search for identity. Whoa. So that is, again, well, why aren't we embracing the homeless and saying, these are our people, we need to help them? They said when Katrina hit, they said, this is a good example of what happens when a society has a downfall or a tragic thing. What do? Shove them in a football stadium.
Yeah.
That wasn't good. What we did in Venice, Bruce Langhorne, who played on the first 4 Bob Dylan albums and a million others, Venice resident, he started a parade of New Orleans music on the boardwalk to raise money for people that were affected by Katrina. So this is, again, we look after our fellow people and we want to find our commonalities. Michael Ventura wrote for the LA Weekly for many years. That's spelled Weakley. He said, the best thing you can do with a homeless person is look them in the eyes.
Yep. And wish them a good day.
Yeah. And so, it's this search for identity, again, I think.
But Venice is searching. I mean, what is your take on modern Venice and where it's headed? I mean,
I'm a positive guy. I want to think. Look at William Blake nailed it. He says, "We become what we behold." Let's go back to the godhead of all the comedians, Lenny Bruce. They say they're influenced by Lenny Bruce, but they don't know that it wasn't just getting away with saying dirty words. Lenny Bruce turns joke telling into storytelling. He says it's this 3 things. You can call a cop 3 things: a pig, a cop, or a peace officer. Why don't you just call them peace officers and we become what we behold? So then I don't want to give these guys are frustrated football players and all they want to do is beat out of people. Well, then tackle that problem with more dialogue and more action. What are you going to do about it?
Hey, didn't you have an experience like that once where you were confronted by a cop in which a cop was treating somebody in a manner that you didn't agree with, and you confronted him?
You talking about the time I got a jaywalking ticket in Hollywood?
Yes, that's what it was, which is now legal, of course.
Yes. Well, I was visiting from New York looking for work in the late 70s, and I'm walking on Hollywood Boulevard because I had returned my rental car, and I'm walking literally on an empty side street. I just crossed it because there was nobody around. I'm just walking, and I hear pull over.
Yeah,
and it's a motorcycle.
Pull over.
So
I'm walking. I've done.
Ray Bradbury would have loved that.
It was a Chips cop, and it was like, pull over. And finally, hey, pull over. So he gets my attention because I guess he's talking. I look at him. Are you talking to me? And he said, yeah, pull over. I said, I'm walking here.
I'm walking here.
So he gets off the bike and he said, yeah, I'm going to write you up for a jaywalking ticket. I said, what? He's back there. I said, on that empty alley street that nobody was on? He said, yes. I said, I'm so sorry. I'm visiting from New York. It's a pedestrian city. Wasn't thinking. I won't do it again. He goes, of course you're not going to do it again because I'm giving you a ticket. And I said, he said, well, you're not in New York anymore. To repeat that line. And I said to him, no, it's just because, they trust adult judgment to cross empty streets and the cops have better things to do. And he said, because I knew I was getting a ticket, it didn't matter at this point. Yeah. And he said, no, that's because all the cops in New York are on the take. And I turned to him, and now I'm getting an audience. And I said to him, no, it's not that. It's that they've got other things to do, like look for the Hillside Strangler. And he broke the point on his pen as he's writing the ticket. He goes, well, if you were capable of having an intelligent conversation, I said, how can you have an intelligent conversation about an adult walking across an empty street? He was so flustered, he gave me a ticket with the wrong hour on it.
Whoa.
So I wrote a letter saying, this ticket can't happen because here's my receipt. I was in a car. Yeah. I get a form letter back from L.A. I'm New York. I get a form letter back saying, "Oh, did you want to contest this? Then you have to post bail." Guess how much bail was? What? Exact same price as the ticket.
Oh.
Never heard from him again.
All right.
So if you move the letters of Los Angeles around, it spells legs on sale.
Oh, that is good. I need that one.
You gotta have wheels, man.
So Gerry, you also are. We only have a few minutes left. You are quite an interviewer. I want to ask two things.
I've interviewed Phil at Beyond Baroque.
You've interviewed a lot of people, and do you do a podcast?
Yeah.
What is it? How can people find it?
It's called "I'm Probably Wrong About Everything." It's on Rob Grant's podcast, and I sort of hijacked it, and then it's on Concerned Netizen, Clinton Ignatoff. So I just hijack my friends and interview people on it, and it's great because I've been interviewing people for 40 years.
What is that was a lot of different names. What is it if somebody's looking for it?
Laughtears.com.
The one-stop shop here is laughtears.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's just an intriguing thing. I learned it from Christine McKenna. What a way to get into know someone and just say, can I interview you? But I set it up because I say it's 90 minutes because of the 90-minute audio cassette. And people that's a chore. It's a chore for them. They go, I don't know if I can last 90 minutes. A lot of times it goes 2 hours, and sometimes it goes part 2. And when I did Phil at Beyond Baroque many years ago, he called me up the next day. He says, I came up with an answer to that one question. I asked him, my big questions are very obscure now, and one of them is, can you forget to die? But, in closing, could I just say this one thing about, with you guys, you've helped me uncover the hidden psychic effects of what live radio is. And McLuhan said it so well. He said, communication of the new is a miracle, but not impossible.
Wow,
so we can
so
keep
true.
going. And it goes along with the joke he loved to say was, the priest is crossing the Canadian border. And the custom officer says, what's in that flask? And he goes, well, that's water. And the custom officer says, let me. And he takes a swig and he goes, that's whiskey. And the priest goes, it's a miracle.
By the way, I think the ultimate irony to close out the show is that we may soon become homeless here at KPFK.
Yeah. No, we're going to find another brick
we will.
building.
I know.
Thank God. We're not going to be homeless.
But what an irony, because the place has been bought, and we don't know where we're going.
This is true sacred ground.
Yeah.
But that's what I said when we lost Spontos in Venice. It doesn't matter what brick building we're in.
The spirit lives.
It's the spirit, but more so the people. And this is so important. To quote the great Irwin Corey. Protocol precedes.
Professor Irwin Corey.
Protocol takes precedent over procedure. Beauty is in the behind of the beholder. Thank you. It's a chorus. And I avoid cliches like the plague. But here's McLuhan. You mean my whole fallacy is wrong?
Yeah.
Gerry Fialka, thank you so much.
You guys are kings.
Really
Thanks so much for sharing the stories about Venice and that incredible scene. If you haven't been, go to Venice. Everybody does go usually when they visit, but go to Venice.
This
Enjoy
Sunday, Venice West.
Yes, Venice
We'll
West.
be celebrating Venice beats and the history of poetry, music, and art.
That's a great in to the culture. Laughtears.com, and you'll find out all the information. Phil? Proctor?
Is that you?
Sexy.
We'll be back again next week with David Osman.
Yes.
Because I'm doing some work with David down here. He'll be on the show.
A fellow member of the Firesign Theatre.
Yeah.
Oh, and bring your wallets, because guess what?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
We're raising money again?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Hey, we got to get a food truck.
Yeah, right. That's what KPFK
That's what we're going to do. We're going to move into a food truck.
In a food truck.
Okay.
Thanks,
all right,
Phil.
everybody. See you next
Love you.
week. Bye-bye. Love you too.